Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Anthony Salas, and on behalf of the American Marketing Association, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast sponsored by Quantcast entitled Performance Targeting, Understanding and Leveraging New Innovation for Marketing Success. We here at the AMA provide you with this webcast as one of the many special programs we offer to the marketing community. And we invite you to participate in this ongoing series of free web seminars to help you drive the greatest return on your marketing investments, whether it's in research, advertising, promotions, social media, and beyond. Our webcasts offer education in all key areas of marketing. So make sure to join us every week for our informative thought leader webcasts featuring some of the most expert minds in marketing. You can find more information at marketingpower.com/webcast for information and enrollment. And as a reminder, on August the 14th, we are holding our next AMA half-day virtual event. Title for this one is Going Mobile, Integrating Strategy and Design for Success. And during this event, you'll learn how to implement a mobile strategy, site navigation, and design for various screen sizes or application development, and reach the ever-growing mobile audience. So if you'd like to learn more about that or register, you can go to marketingpower.com/mobilevx. Before we do get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. Today's webcast is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording after the live event today. If you have any technical or content-related questions, you have a chat box to the left of your viewing screen there. You can enter your questions in that area. Content questions will be addressed at the end of the webcast, and technical questions will be addressed as soon as you do enter those. And a final reminder is if you are on Twitter today, you can join our conversation there. The hashtag for today's presentation is, again, hashtag Quantcast. So please join us there. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. On your screen, you do see a couple of pictures there. And as a reminder, this is actually part one of a series of two webcasts. So joining us for today's webcast is Chris Martelloti. He is the Performance Marketing Strategist with Quantcast. And with a background covering search, display, and audience measurement, Chris works to develop strategies for helping performance marketers navigate the world of real-time media. So you can have a lot of great information to share. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Chris to get things started.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. Appreciate it. Happy Friday the 13th to everybody. Hope you're doing well and having a good morning and good afternoon. I'm in a room with no black cats, so I'm assuming things should go quite well, and look forward to speaking to all of you. I hope to provide everyone here a little bit of insight into performance marketing and utilizing data to properly drive results. This presentation is really designed for any marketer looking to harness digital as a way to expand their business. I'll go over some very basic concepts on some of the beginning slides, but also provide some really juicy insights that even the most advanced performance marketer should find interest in. This is a brief agenda for what we'll be walking through today. I'll give you a little background on Quantcast, talk about the general challenges and opportunities that exist in the marketplace, and give you the evolution of performance targeting in display advertising as seen through a search lens. And finally, give you some ideas on how to succeed in the real-time media space. Scott Linzer, who will be delivering the follow-up seminar on August 17th, will be discussing how to incorporate real-time performance strategies outlined in this presentation into your 2013 media plans. Quantcast is an audience measurement and targeting company, providing two services which we actually feel go hand in hand together. Media has become more fragmented than ever before. Users are consuming content from different devices, searching for particular stories, being influenced by information shared by their friends on social networks, and the idea of picking a particular publication and reading it from front cover to back cover is very rare. It's because of this fragmentation and unique form of consumption of content that old forms of media measurement are no longer sufficient for analyzing audiences, and publishers, as well as marketers, need to know how to take advantage of this fragmentation as opposed to being stifled by it. Correctly understanding behavior and having the tool sets to act upon the desired behaviors and activities of your best customers, marketers will be able to grow their business and make highly targeted digital campaigns, resulting in more customers. Old forms of media measurement were based upon looking at a panel of users and understanding their behavior. This sample set was used by a marketer to make projections about audience behavior so that you could place a media buy accordingly. When the media choices for a consumer were limited, for example, when there were 4 television stations, you could use this approach and make a fairly accurate media buy. When there are billions of media destinations, as is the case with the web, this approach will not work. In a real-time world, you have to be able to measure the impression to serve it. This is why at the core of any targeting solution for driving advertising performance, measurement's the foundation. After all, the internet has been promised of being the most measurable of all mediums, yet traditional media measurement methodologies are outdated to truly capture the promise of the web and the real-time world in which we live. It's nothing new for us to talk about the Holy Grail of advertising, and that you place the right ad in front of the right person at the right place and the right time. In some ways, this is easier than ever before, as there are many more tools to analyze user information. Yet, this is actually more challenging than ever before because your customers are not coming through one path to conversion, and they are not being persuaded by one channel. Instead, the right user at the right place and the right time are variables in an equation for performance. And the better equipped marketers are to understand these variables, the more success you will find. As a comparison, many performance marketers have found success in online search, as it captures users at the right place when they're giving their intentions to the search engine, the right person as defined by the keyword data you purchase against, and the right place, which is the search engine results page, which is basically providing an answer for the search query that was just given by the user. Search is now more competitive than ever, but captures the right elements that make performance advertising work. We'll do a poll question on the audience at this point and ask what percentage of your online performance budget is spent on search. You can see that the first answer is less than 25%, the second 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%, and then more than 75%. I'll give you a couple minutes and then we'll skip to the results page here. It's interesting, as we'll see with this crowd, less than 25% of the performance budget is spent on search. The next you'll see 26 to 50%, and then groups where a large portion of more than 50% of their budget is spent on search. I'll go back here and just give it a couple more minutes and have everyone kind of show the results if you haven't voted yet. So it's interesting comparing that to kind of the online marketplace and some of the research that's been done. Searching as a web activity takes up only 4% of a user's time online, yet captures 50% of online advertising budgets. Google was able to create a buying system that offered value-based pricing, impression-level targeting, and a consistent data set with which to buy upon. With search advertising, a marketer breaks down their campaign into individual keywords, bidding an amount appropriate to drive the performance desired. Keep in mind that prior to the Google AdWords buying system, marketers would buy buckets of keywords of many different keyword combinations created by the search engine themselves, and this man-made approach didn't scale nor properly drive results for advertisers. As an example, Alta Vista, which was once a leading search engine, would sell you a bucket of 500 keyword combinations. If you were a car insurance advertiser, you would pay a flat monthly fee for this group of auto insurance keywords. and your ad would be placed live anytime somebody searched for any of these keywords. At this time, there was no concept of buying individual keywords in an auction model, and this is where Google fundamentally changed the way search was bought. The AdWords system allows you to buy each individual word at a different price, and there's a real-time auction amongst buyers which takes place once a user searches. Comparing this to the way display advertising works up until now, it has not offered this similar level of buying, which accounts for the discrepancy you see here in time spent versus budget allocation. This slide breaks down these differences in more detail. Notice with search, you don't buy keywords separately from the impressions against those keywords. You buy them together. Data coupled with media happening in real time is what has driven the performance in this channel. Traditional display advertising separates the planning criteria, which is the data informing the buy, the insertion order, which establishes the buy, and the serving of an ad to a consumer. Based on the staleness of the planning criteria, the inconsistency of the data being used as guidelines for the buy, and the lack of a feedback loop to determine success, display has struggled to capture the performance and share of wallet as search. As an example of this in a display campaign would be a marketer looking to target men 18 to 55. They may buy ads on a large sports website because based on your research over the last trends, there's a strong over-index of this audience. You sign paperwork to run site-wide across the website for the following month. And once your campaign is lined up with all the other campaigns that they've sold, your ads end up running on a women's golf section of the website. And your over-index of male 18 to 55 audience based on your research doesn't translate into the same value upon impression delivery. This disjointed buying process is a waste to the advertiser, the publisher, and most importantly, the consumer. Today, targeting technologies for both publishers and advertisers solve for this challenge. Users spend 96% of their time across the web when they are not searching. They are doing research on products, on social networks, watching videos, playing games, reading the news, checking email, looking at the weather, etc. Users are sending off many moments of relevance as they surf around the web. Yet the ability to capture these moments, bid appropriately on placing ads in front of these users, and effectively drive users through the purchase funnel can be very difficult. According to Nielsen, the average internet user visits 90 websites per month. And imagine if you are a marketer expecting to drive 1,000 conversions on your website per month. This means that your customer base of 1,000 people could have visited up to 90,000 websites that month. In the traditional forms of media buying, you would have to set up media partnerships with 90,000 websites and negotiate rates with 90,000 partners. This is where audience buying evolved from, and the ability to automatically buy across millions of sites. If a marketer can capture the relevant behavior across the 96% of the user time spent online, and efficiently and effectively target their ads, they'll be able to grow their business beyond search. You can see on this slide an example of some of the moments of relevance being performed by a user. Search, in many cases, is the end of the purchase funnel. Yet done correctly, display can have a dramatic effect on search performance. Performance targeting analyzes data to find users who are at a stage with the highest propensity to convert. And even though your ad is always interrupting the user's web experience, if they see your ad when they're checking their email or looking at the weather or watching a video, you as a marketer stand a very good chance of driving the end conversion. By its nature, this form of advertising drives far fewer clicks, yet can have a dramatic impact on the bottom line of conversions. The ability to target users across the web at scale is the definition of audience targeting, yet it is much more difficult to achieve than one thinks. First, we'll walk through how ad inventory is more accessible than ever before, and then we can talk about the power of data, and finally talk about ways to buy in the most efficient way possible. Large online publishers have always had direct sales teams working to create advertising programs for marketers. Typically, these programs are designed from a rate card of the publisher and sold on either a flat fee or a CPM, cost per 1,000 impression basis. Most publishers struggle to sell their entire inventory directly and always end up with unsold inventory. In some cases, this can be a small overall percentage of their inventory, around 10%. And in other cases, this can be 85% or more. Just because a publisher doesn't sell their inventory doesn't mean that it's bad. Instead, it simply means it was not sold as part of a media program put together by their advertising sales team. For a publisher, they always need to make a decision about how to make money from their entire set of inventory. In the past, publishers worked with many ad networks that bought and then resold the inventory, providing a scalable solution to advertisers. Yet due to channel conflict and the risk of being undercut by ad networks, publishers needed a solution to provide transparency, safety, and controls that allowed them to sell their inventory at the best price. Ad exchanges were born to solve this problem and have become the sell-side solution that allow for impression-by-impression bidding from the buy side, also known as real-time bidding, or RTB. Exchanges have become very large and consist of billions of impressions available to buy per day. And as a buyer, one has access to nearly 100% of the people available to target in the US. Real-time bidding has become a hot buzzword, but the meaning behind this is actually quite simple. An exchange will send a request to potential buyers and ask if any buyer has interest in bidding on this impression associated with the user. Within 100 milliseconds, a buyer must respond with a bid and creative. If you win the auction, your ad is shown and the publisher receives money for that media placement. The key components for success within real-time bidding is to have the technical speed to respond to the bid and the ability to evaluate the bids to ensure that you are paying the appropriate price to drive performance. Unlike search, bids are not necessarily predefined. Instead, a calculation can be done within that 100 millisecond time period, placing a value on that impression opportunity, and this translates into the responding bid. The new paradigm that lies for marketers within these RTB systems is that the purchase price of media is not controlled by you, by hand, but rather done by machine learning algorithms. The benefit is that done correctly, this has the opportunity to scale your business by placing your media in front of a large set of prospects that are sending off even the most nuanced behavior that demonstrates potential interest in your product. These signals could never be processed by a human, and so machines beat people in the new landscape of real-time advertising. It's a marketer's job to control the inputs into the machine, ensuring that it's finding the most relevant prospects based upon the inputs of your ideal customer set. RTB in this auction-based model has truly revolutionized display advertising. It is widely preached that this auction-based format will be the foundation for future buying in mobile, television, and all forms of digital media. You can see here the growth in display advertising, which has been fueled by RTB. For the first time, buyers in the display market have one of the key elements that made search successful, a real-time auction for delivery of ads. It is projected that in 2015, display advertising, which will be both brand and RTB based, will actually overtake search spend as marketers are able to precisely target users during that 96% of time that they're consuming content online. RTB is so easy. Everyone should be doing it, right? Well, let's explore some of the executional challenges and best practices for capitalizing on RTB. Media is data. Every interaction a consumer has with your brand creates a record, and the reaction of that user to this interaction is what is crucial to understand. Data has typically lived outside of the media buy itself. One would buy research on past behavior and then utilize this for future media buys. In a digital world, data is a double-edged sword. There's a wealth of data available. Every click and every page that a user consumes is tracked. Every like on Facebook, every comment on a blog, and even every step that you take can be recorded on a Nike Fuel band. I'm wearing mine today. This wealth of data can be challenging for any marketer to take advantage of. Third-party data, which includes things like intent data, interest data, or demographic data, can be purchased from third parties who tie this information to cookies. Third-party data always comes at a cost. First-party data includes information about past web surfing habits, site visits, purchases, the time of day the user visits the site, what type of machine may they have been visiting from. Were they coming from an iPhone, a Mac, a PC? And perhaps visit session pattern behavior, where there's particular pages of your site that they're going to or specific interactions they were having. This can also include data that is used in retargeting, which is basically serving ads to a user who's come to your site and perhaps gone through part of your purchase funnel but not bought your product. And this can also include customer data that you may have collected from previous campaigns or from previous interactions with a user. First-party data will always perform better than third-party data for a marketer. And if you look at the value of some companies like Facebook and LinkedIn, they are loaded with first-party interest data of their members, and the advertising solutions that they've built around that enable marketers to tap into this information. With all of this data comes a challenge. Information and data happen in real time on the web. Consumers are constantly sending off information about themselves, and it can be hard for a marketer to gather the data and understand its relevance to a consumer making a purchase on their site. The man-made approach to organizing this, which failed in search, is leaving a lot to be desired in display. Cookies are deleted quickly. Definitions of relevant behavior change. And by the time a marketer or an agency may find a solution, it's too late. RTB allows for the integration of data and media and a real-time adjustment of your campaigns. When marketers tend to forget is that in real-time bidding, you must use real-time data to drive the most success. Search is successful for a performance because of the freshness by which your ad can be placed in front of a user. Within milliseconds of a user performing a search, your relevant and targeted ad is placed in front of them. The same freshness can be applied in display, but can only be done through an integrated approach built on first-party data. One of the challenges that exist today is that marketers who are buying media and buy data separately do not necessarily know how to make the two interact properly with each other, and have a hard time deduping to find what is successful. And all third-party data lacks freshness. RTB version 1.0, as many like to refer to it, has had many challenges. Many marketers segment out their display budget. They use one partner for retargeting, one partner for prospecting, one partner for behavioral targeting, and then layer on different third-party vendors to ensure the relevancy of their impressions. Although this approach can be good for upper funnel brand awareness initiatives, it does not utilize the framework to drive search-like results from display. There are some flaws with RTB version 1.0. First, it does not utilize the essence of machine learning, taking actual empirical data on behavior and turning this into precisely calculated equations and the resulting bids for impressions. Instead, it has used theory and logic to piece together what a buyer thinks may drive the best results. RTB version 1.0 took behaviors, aligned them to man-made segments such as auto intenders, travel enthusiasts, C-level executives, etc., and then allowed for these to be bought and layered onto media buys. All of these segments, which are tied to cookies and built from either web behavior, credit card data, purchase information, or offline data sets, never align to a linear path of a conversion for a marketer, and thus create waste. The multiple-phase purchase funnel of converters, retargeting, in-market consumers, and prospecting forces buyers to create multiple man-made segments that are independent of one another, and thus has marketers targeting users that are sending off conflicting behavioral signals that are inconsistent with a marketer's performance goal of making a purchase. If a marketer can create a segment of one, which can scale all internet users and can rank them with a probability of purchasing, you will have maximized the efficiency of spending in RTB environments. The next stage of RTB will remove the segmenting process entirely and will align a marketer's desired conversion event with bids that are built from immediate web behavior sent off by their currently converting prospects. Exactly how search is bought and sold today. This gives you a real-time feedback loop, which consists of prospecting in-market customers, retargeting, and converters, eliminating additional impressions, and it adjusts immediately to changing behaviors of your consumers. Search buying challenged traditional media buying for the first time. The winners were no longer the best negotiators for discounted impressions. Instead, they were the marketers and agencies best equipped to translate their data into better creative, more intelligent bids, and strategies to segment their audiences to drive the most performance. Intelligent search marketing is done by evaluating a particular audience defined by a keyword and backing this into performance goals. For some keywords, bids may be as low as 10 cents per click, but other keywords may be as high as $100 per click. It is this ability to navigate this and bid appropriately that drives success. No marketer negotiates with Google or Bing for cheaper clicks. You find success by finding audiences at a cost-effective price. Display is taking on many of these characteristics today. In fact, with RTB, a bid must be placed in 100 milliseconds of time, and it is the ability to effectively pay for a particular user at a particular time at the appropriate price that will judge your success or failure within the RTB environment. All of this data, just as in search, all of this information, just as in search, is about data. The ability to process massive amounts of data to capture the web behavior of your consumers and tie that to machine learning algorithms which can rank, score, and bid on your behalf is not an easy task. In fact, the ability to take sell-side behavior, apply it to buy-side procedures, and do this at a scale of millions of data points per second is exactly what has created the largest internet companies on the planet. Amazon doesn't sell the most books because it has the most books. They have a sophisticated algorithm which predicts your next purchase by analyzing all of the previous purchases on their site, making a custom recommendation for each one of their customers. Netflix has a similar algorithm for movies, and Google ranks their search results pages in a relevant order to what your query was. Even IBM's Watson showed its power over the smartest Jeopardy players by combing through billions of data pieces and being able to provide a correct answer within milliseconds. Marketers now have the advantage of utilizing the same scale of technology for their own performance. To optimize scale, marketers need data and technology aligned together in a closed-loop system. If you look at the characteristics of what made search take off for performance marketers, it was its lack of third-party integration. As described earlier, you don't purchase keywords, the data which helps you understand which users to target, and the impressions against those keywords separately. Instead, you buy them together, an integrated approach built on first-party data. As RTB and display have evolved, there have been an increasing number of third-party solutions providing data on users to help companies target more effectively. As a marketer, it's hard to weigh the importance of an offline credit card transaction, online behavioral data, registration information, survey data, and effectively bid based upon this. The ideal approach for a performance marketer is to utilize a consistent data set that has the ability to rank users on their propensity to convert and bid based upon those ranks. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see how much this dramatically affects performance. Although the users were the same that were targeted in both cases, you can see that the integrated data plus media solution drives a 2 to 5x better performance. And to walk through this slide in a little more detail, you'll see automotive, airline, charity, and a hotel. The mix and match data solution was where a bucket of cookies was sold to was bought, sold to a vendor who then purchased media separately and layered on the cookie level data. And what you'll see here is the integrated approach, because it's real time and can bid appropriately, drove much higher performance. We're now going to play a game on the next slide, so pay close attention to this as I walk through this, but it should be kind of interesting. As this slide shows, most consumers have a very complex path to purchase. If you follow this slide from left to right, you can see that a user may be targeted with a display ad impression for the Hawaii Grand Hotel on a travel website. Then the visitor goes to a weather website and is served another impression. At this time, the user does a search for Hawaii hotel reviews, clicks on an ad, and ends up on the review website. On that review website, they click on a link for Hawaii Grand Hotel and do research on the site, but they don't book a room. They then visit other sites across the web, including a news site, and get retargeted by Hawaii Grand Hotel with a display banner. Finally, the user does a search for Hawaii Grand Hotel. They go to the website again through the search ad and convert. What I'd like to ask you is, who gets credit for this conversion? You can see the poll results here, and I think you can search plus retargeting, only the ads that were clicked on, all of the ads, or none of the ads. As these filter in, I'll go to the next page and we can kind of see the results. Very interesting. So there's the largest number is search plus retargeting, which are the bottom two events in the funnel. There's also the largest group, I guess, would be all ads plus only the, and then there's a group that's only the ads that were clicked upon. So you can see that attribution is one of the big challenges within the industry, and that knowing that every consumer is being influenced by multiple stages within the funnel. And yet the easiest thing to track is something very low funnel. But this is very common across most marketers, is that understanding attribution can be varied across the board. If you look at this particular example that I walked through, and from a simplest of attribution models, search gets the credit as it was the last advertisement the user engaged with. If you incorporate both search and display but use basic attribution, search and retargeting get the credit. But in reality, there are many touch points here to drive the end conversion, and it is easiest to increase spend at the closest events to conversion, search and retargeting. Yet prior influence had just as much an effect, if not more, than the last click or last view. For all 1,000 customers this advertiser may drive, every one of them may come from a different path. And just as complex as it is to target your best prospects across the billions of different web properties, it can be even harder to assign value to the right partners for driving influence on a purchase. Yet as any marketer who has tried retargeting, which consists of basically reaching users who have shown some interest in your product and perhaps started their way down the purchase funnel, they'll explain that it's the best performing display solution they've used. Even retargeting can be trumped with a connected solution that ties all pieces of the marketing funnel to one event of value, a conversion. In fact, using retargeting alone as a display strategy will always handicap your efforts to prospect and scale your campaigns, because the lowest parts of the purchase funnel are always over-attributed for the value they truly provide. Relating this back to search, retargeting is the equivalent of only buying branded search terms, a very defensive strategy. Once marketers realize that there are actually users who have never been to their website but are demonstrating a higher propensity to buy their products than a user who may have just abandoned your own shopping cart, you'll realize how small and limiting even a retargeting segment can be. Performance marketing has one goal: acquisition. As we discussed previously, it is all about taking the characteristics of your best customers and using these as a baseline for finding new consumers, whether they have or have not been to your site before. Always realize that there's a much larger set of users on the web that are in market for your product than there are users who have just visited your purchase funnel. Whether you're buying on a CPM or a CPA basis, these characteristics remain the same. However, CPA buying is value-based buying. Marketers only pay for ads that are shown to users who complete their desired action. If you're buying on a CPM basis, it doesn't matter if you're buying impressions at a 10-cent CPM or impressions at a $100 CPM. If they do not effectively drive new consumers, there's waste. For every marketer, their desires are different, their websites are different, and the goals of the campaign can vary. Yet with all marketers, there are some best practices utilized to target their best prospects. You must focus on the key event of value. And most traditional methods of buying media and methods of gauging success don't necessarily translate to this event. If the goal of the campaign is to drive someone to the conversion page, the shopping cart page is actually a proxy for the audience on the converting page. The home page is another, less accurate proxy. And if you were to use the audience that clicked on your ads, it would look a lot more like an audience of people that click on ads than anything that has to do with the people who end up on your confirmation page. Just as in a game of telephone, if you try to target based on proxies of an audience that you're actually looking for, you have a diluted target and resulting media waste. CPA buying through RTB platforms is likely to increase dramatically. As mobile, television, display, video, and other digitally connected media become available to buy in this fashion, it will be far too hard for a marketer to negotiate CPM rates across the different flavors of inventory. Instead, performance marketers will adjust the aggressiveness of their CPA goals, and a machine-driven bidding technology will find the most valuable impressions across any and all inventory sources that can drive the conversions at the most effective cost. This is far removed from the cost per acquisition methods of old, which were essentially spray and pray. If you serve ads to everyone on the internet, some of those people are bound to convert. This form of CPA gives marketers the ability to eliminate all waste and drive the highest levels of efficiency across their campaigns. You can see in this slide, the x-axis is looking at clicks, and the y-axis is looking at conversions. What you'll see in this performance campaign is that optimizing for clicks is essentially anti-optimizing, since clickers weren't necessarily the best converters. The general lesson here is relatively simple. If your goal is conversions, then why not optimize specifically against audiences that are most likely to convert? Again, these aren't always the same as those most likely to click. To summarize, real-time bidding connects the full reach of the web with impression-by-impression buying. This can be a tremendous opportunity for performance marketers with the right execution. First, high-quality data and technological scale are requirements. Partner with companies that have the necessary breadth of data and technological scale and the ability to integrate the two in real time. Second, while our instinct is to create segments that align with our intuition and to measure based on the most recent action taken, the best results will come from trying to understand and optimize towards your actual online behavior. Lastly, RTB provides a unique opportunity to value each impression separately, so why not take full advantage of this by optimizing against actual converters and using conversion events as your currency. Display advertising is the new stomping for performance marketers. By utilizing the same tactics that made search explode, you can take advantage of your own conversion data, and in real time use this to find more customers just like them. You must disregard some of the initial metrics we as an online marketing community came up with to gauge success, such as clicks, or perhaps even impressions, and keep a laser focus on your highest value event, the conversion page. Don't be fooled by the latest acronyms or the allure of cheap impressions. The only thing that should be man-made is your decision to give it a try. I look forward to having you join us on August 17th as Scott Linzer takes his experience background in search and performance advertising and guides you through the ability to utilize these tactics on your 2013 media plan. And I certainly appreciate your time today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris, for all of that information, and kind of leaves us some time so we can go ahead and jump into some Q&A at this point. Just a reminder to everyone, if you would like to continue entering your questions, feel free to use that chat box to the left of your viewing screen there. Go ahead and enter your questions. If we can do it, we're going to get to as many as we can, but any questions that we aren't able to address today, we will actually, Quantcast has agreed to follow up on those. So please know that any questions that aren't covered will be followed up in the next, probably in the next week or so. So Chris, we're going to kind of jump into some questions here. I think starting with just because you were kind of, I think, ended things with discussion on RTB. Question here is, what do you think will be the effect of RTB on other marketing channels?
Yeah, good question. I think RTB will continue to grow, and anyone who's kind of looked at the news recently saw that Facebook has launched an RTB platform. So there's a lot of focus on this, and Google has invested a lot of money over the past few years on scaling their RTB programs. So it's not news to anybody to know that digital impressions are growing, and because of mobile devices, iPads, and the way people are consuming content digitally has just grown tremendously. And so what people know is that RTB, being an auction-based model, is going to continue to thrive because it drives performance, and it's the easiest way for a marketer to act upon it. So it's going to grow because of that, and it's going to go across a lot of different devices and a lot of different channels. I think probably one of the biggest markets out there that I think companies are making plays for is the television universe, which right now is a broadcast medium, and so advertisements are served to a large portion of users. But who's to say that 5 years from now a television couldn't look a lot more like a computer and have very connected an IP, and each user may see a different ad. So RTB is going to grow, and it's interesting to see how it evolves on different devices.
Excellent. And I think you just kind of mentioned earlier as well, and in that response there, kind of the digital advertising, things of that sort. So with what you were mentioning in the presentation there, is there a suggestion there that digital branding or brand advertising is not as valid or no longer valid?
Yeah, good question. Not at all. Branding is huge, and I didn't want to misconstrue that the growth in RTB has sort of collapsed brand advertising at all. In fact, I would say that the evolution of a lot of third-party data platforms of taking offline data, bringing it online, and building models from that are amazing for branding. Even the ability to target demographics on a number of sites is a relatively new thing that didn't totally exist even 5 years ago. So brand advertising will grow tremendously, and personally myself, I would think that some of the most unique ads I've seen online are things like homepage takeovers and sponsorships, which are all brand focused. And I think what will happen in the brand universe is there'll be this idea of doing a homepage sponsorship, but then layering on third-party data to extend the buy across more page views and more users. So branding is growing just as much as RTB is growing, and that ability for what we've called kind of offline dollars shifting online will continue to happen. This presentation specifically was focused kind of on the hardcore performance marketers, and so everything was kind of geared around that. But branding is growing, and there's a lot of solutions out there for that, including one that Quantcast provides to our publishing partners.
Excellent. And kind of along that line there, not really, but so again, my question previously was, is it something that's not quite as relevant? But question here is, along that line, also in regards to retargeting, is that something that should be stopped or maybe not done quite as much? Any thoughts or suggestions on retargeting?
Yeah, good question. Good question. There's a lot of companies out there doing retargeting, and it's a good solution, and it works. The analogy I like to give is this: there was a time when someone would pay a very high price for the fastest horse. And then once a car came around, the fastest horse was worth less because there was an entirely new solution. And so I think that marketers should do retargeting. That should be part of their plan, yet there are solutions that are evolving that extend far beyond that. And so the wonderful thing about retargeting is marketers for the first time have seen performance actually work from display, because for a long time there was very little that people were doing to drive performance at all in display. They were, the best example was someone doing contextual buys. But now retargeting has worked. I think there's just a next evolution that will happen that will kind of tie data and media together and really expand the scale that a marketer can have on the web with display.
Very good. Thanks so much. Again, just a quick reminder to everyone before we jump to our next question. Keep the questions coming. I know some of you have asked in regards to a recording of the webcast, and yes, we will indeed be providing everyone on the call today with a link to the recording. So please be on the lookout in your email for that, so that will be heading your way. Next question from the audience here. This person, in regards to more, I guess, a business that's more of like a brick and mortar type business, what would you suggest when there's no real opportunity to convert on a website?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a couple answers to that. One thing I think that's pretty amazing from a sort of brick and mortar level businesses is these are marketers that used to spend a majority of their advertising budget in things like the Yellow Pages and local newspapers. And I think we've really seen local businesses in the last couple years expand online with things like Yelp and even Groupon. And so it's really great to see very small brick and mortar businesses now looking into performance advertising and how can they actually get involved in some of the latest technology out there. So that's a really interesting trend and a very cool thing to see. What a lot of marketers do that are performance marketers, but there's not necessarily an online conversion, or they may have a very small audience, is pick specific characteristics on your site as key performance indicators of a good customer. So that can be things like signing up for a newsletter, or if you're searching on a map on your site for directions to where you exist. Those are indications of a customer who's probably pretty interested in doing business with you, yet they're not necessarily spending money online or buying something on your website. And so what's great about this real-time bidding process and kind of the machine-driven purchasing of media is that the human element is picking the right indicators on your site. Where does your best customer lie? And so every marketer has a different way of saying that, but usually there's a step that's lower than just the home page that actually has a really strong audience of who your best customer is. And so for smaller marketers, and especially brick and mortar marketers, we've seen that really become successful because they find the right audience that way. And another kind of key thing for marketers like this is to use insights. There are a lot of tools out there that can help describe the audience on your site or on different pages within your site. And there's a lot of free tools that allow for that. And it's really important to kind of understand, as people are navigating through your site, the people on the home page are very different than perhaps the people that look at a map for directions to where you exist. And so that's, there's a lot of great data out there, and it's important to utilize that information.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question, and I believe this is something you mentioned earlier on, and we were talking about conversions. Post-view activities. So maybe kind of get your comment or input on this. Anyone that specifically were not actually viewed by the consumer, maybe because they were below the fold or they hadn't loaded completely, yet they're still counted as a conversion. So can you comment a little bit more about that and how that all plays out?
Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting in that recently, I think there's been a lot of talk on this concept called viewable impressions and ensuring that a user has seen your ad. And I think there's a couple flavors of looking at this. If you're buying on a CPM basis and you're buying, something that may be more brand focused, tracking viewable impressions is actually very important because you're paying for every impression, so you should hope that a user sees that. If you're buying on a CPA basis, you're not buying impressions at all. You're just buying a conversion. And so it really changes the mindset of what the viewable impression is, because sometimes, if you assume whatever number of ads may be below the fold or not quite seen, CPA buying is all about driving influence. And so a lot of performance marketers utilize that tactic to purchase because it doesn't matter whether there were 10,000 impressions served or 100,000 impressions served. It's all about driving users over the finish line to conversion. So for brand-based campaigns, it's really important for users to see ads. For performance-based campaigns, especially bought on a CPA basis, it's all about the action.
Excellent. And another question just came in here. What are your recommendations for applying the tactics that you've discussed in the webinar today to a B2B business?
Yeah, great question. So online behavior is a fascinating thing in that everybody consumes online and sends off signals. And some people can send off different signals at home than they do at work. But that ability to actually have signals sent off can be captured from both a B2C and a B2B company. And models can be built based on behavior that's happened before. A lot of this, if you think of with a B2B company, you may look at some different characteristics, understanding, people from this size company tend to convert, or from these types of areas tend to convert, where a B2C company may look less at that type of information. But all of that's recorded, and all that can actually be used in modeling. So for B2B companies, it'd be just as successful, if not more successful, than B2C companies. And I think one of the challenges that B2B companies have, and where the real opportunity lies with audience targeting, is that buying contextually from B2B can be very, very narrow. In buying sites like CFO.com, which is highly relevant information, but a very narrow-based site, it can be, the opportunity for B2B marketers is huge in audience buying because there's just an ability to find users all across the web that are sending off patterns of the converters.
Excellent. And got one question I think that's come through a couple of times here, and I think we'll go ahead and allow this to be our final question. We've got some individuals here who have they're familiar somewhat with Quantcast, but not so much with the products overall that are offered. So I was wondering if you could just kind of provide kind of an overview into some of the different products that they can use, and maybe like where they can get some more information there.
Sure. So Quantcast has 3 products. And so the first product is audience measurement. It's a free solution. We have 100 million publishing websites that utilize that solution to get information on their audience. And so that's solution number 1 that Quantcast provides. We've provided that for quite a long time. And then we have 2 targeting solutions. We have one solution that's focused with our publishing partners who are selling campaigns directly to advertisers. And they utilize us for buying demographics and buying various models that we've built for advertisers. And so those are brand focused because they lack sort of the immediate freshness that you can capture in RTB. But we've seen a lot of results, and we've really seen that grow as brand marketers have kind of bought the homepage takeover and then extended those buys with segments like the ones that Quantcast provides. And the other solution we provide is a performance targeting solution, both on a CPM and a CPA basis. And this is dealing with marketers that have very specific conversion events that they're looking to have users go towards. And so we work in a real-time bidding capacity where we're operating on their behalf, and essentially the machines that we've built are bidding for particular users and driving performance. And we've really seen a lot of success with that because, as I kind of alluded to in the presentation, there's a consistency in approaching the market in a way that is very similar to how search became really successful. And so that integrated approach, the first-party data, and a connected solution has really driven a lot of success for marketers we've worked with. So those are the 3 products, both measurement, a brand targeting product, and then a performance targeting product.
Excellent. Perfect. And takes us right up to, unfortunately, our scheduled end time. So with that, Chris, thank you so much for all of the information that you did share today. I appreciate the time and effort that went into pulling all of this together. I'd also like to remind everyone that, as we mentioned at the beginning, this was the first of a 2-part series of webcasts. The next one will be taking place on Friday, August the 17th. And on that one, we'll be hearing from Scott Linzer, who is the head of search agency development with Quantcast. So you should be seeing registration and information on the session itself coming out very soon. So please be on the lookout for that, and hope to see you all on that webcast as well. Just a reminder to everyone that We will be sending out the recording link to you, so you'll be getting that, as I mentioned earlier, so please be on the lookout for that. And then also continue that conversation on Twitter. We've had a lot of great comments and sharing going on there. So again, the hashtag for today is hashtag Quantcast, so please keep that going there. I'd like to thank Quantcast, who was our generous sponsor today, as well as ReadyTalk, who provided us with the platform that we use. If you would like to learn more about ReadyTalk and their services, please visit readytalk.com/AMA. And last but not least, thanks to you, the audience, for your time and participation in today's webcast. We hope to see you again on an upcoming Thought Leader webcast, so please look for upcoming events that are of interest to you and join us then. That does end our presentation for today. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.